I think I was like 305 or something in that photo.
Oh, easy.
And I'm like 20% body fat, 15% body fat. And I was like,
there we go. Oh, there it is.
It looks like my fucking cheeks are eating my face. Like, what the heck?
Your mouth looks tiny. Fouad's got a tiny mouth.
Yeah, what the fuck happened to my head there? I can't believe I walked around like that and thought I looked like not that weird. Like, that's a weird.
Yeah.
Like, now
just a normal guy.
Yeah,
just a normal guy going to the mall.
I remember when I was going to the mall with Summer, I would throw a hoodie on, and I would be like,
"There, no one can see me now."
Blending in.
I'm blending in, right?
Hey, everybody! Welcome to It's Just Bodybuilding. Ron Partlow here with Dusty Hanshaw and the producer Scott McNally. And we got a special episode. We actually had someone who wants to hang out with us, believe it or not. We got Fouad Abiad. He's got, you might have heard of him. He's got his own little podcast, series of podcasts. And of course, the creator of Hosstile, the most hostile brand in the bodybuilding arena. Is that true there, Fouad? Do you like that intro?
I don't know if we're the most hostile, but yeah, we're doing pretty good. But thank you for the introduction.
I got a question for you. It's a silly question, but this is the stuff that keeps me awake at night.
Okay.
When you were coming up with your brand and you came up with the word hostile, obviously, I imagine as soon as that word appeared in your head, you were like, "Oh, right, this is perfect."
I was,
and then, did it ever? Were you ever like, should I spell it HOSSSTYLE, or do I keep it the way the word hostile spelled, but just with two S's?
So there's a guy before me that
I told you it was a dumb question.
No, it's not a dumb question. There's a guy before me, like when I was coming up, that made a clothing brand called Hosstile with a Y.
Oh, okay.
But that's not what the meaning of hostile is. It's not like, it's like there's a meaning to it, right? Like, this is the thing. I didn't ever want to do this. So me and Summer, I told.
There's the start of it. I did not want to do this.
I don't even want to be here right now.
Okay, this is the truth. So when we were coming up with the name for the company, I mentioned it to Summer because I was like, one of my fans at some point, because I used to train with a lot of anger and emotion, and somebody hashtagged one of my videos hostile training. But he spelled it with two S's because of my nickname.
Right.
So I mentioned it to Summer. She's like, "Oh, that's a great idea." And I'm like, "It's not a great idea. I'm just saying it. Like, let's not do that." Because my thing was, and this may sound really bad, but if you guys can hear any snorting, that's my Frenchie, by the way. But this may sound really bad, but I saw what happened to 5% after Rich Piana passed.
Right.
I felt like Rich Piana was the whole brand.
Yeah.
And when Rich Piana passed, I felt like 5% took a major hit. I don't know how they're doing now, but they're definitely not doing what they were doing when Rich was around.
Sure. Right.
So when we were coming up with Hosstile, I was like, I don't want to be the face of the brand. I don't want it to be. I don't want it to revolve around me. I don't want it to be my name. I said, let's pick something generic. Let's do like a BPI or a fucking Muscle Tech or something that's not connected to me. That way, if anything ever happens to me, or when I get really old and I can't do any videos or whatever, like that way it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect the brand.
Right.
So we had some meetings with some investors that were also kind of in the industry. And when we told them about the various names we had chosen, everybody was like, "It's got to be Hostile."
You lose.
So I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm just getting in my own way. So we'll just roll with it. So we chose Hostile, and people are like, "Well, that's really angry." And I'm like, it's not really about the anger as much as it is just the aggressive pursuit to your goals.
Right.
So that's kind of how that's like kind of our spin on it. But yeah, that's kind of the way the name came about. It wasn't ever supposed to be. And then I just kind of got forced or talked into it. So I was like, all right. I'm like, if everybody, sometimes, this is the crazy thing about owning a business. It can't be about you. This is, I think, where maybe a lot of people in business go wrong is, And I don't just mean like the look of the company, I mean the decision making. Like sometimes somebody thinks if they own the company that their decision is always the best decision, and that's not the case. So I've learned, actually, now thinking about it, even from day one of naming the company, like, stay out of your own way. There's other people that know more, or even if it's not that they know more, if there's a general consensus,
Right.
that probably means something, and your opinion might not be more important than that general consensus. So that's kind of the start of it.
If you could start your company all over again, is there one main thing that you would do different to save yourself headache or time or the first year, or I don't know, is there anything that you would change if you started from scratch all over?
There are some things, but they're not things I want to do. They're things you have to do. And, you've been with Mutant for a long time, Ron, and you've been in the inner workings. You've been behind the scenes. You probably know how things work, and you probably have some understanding of, or maybe a major understanding. I don't know what the extent of your knowledge is in pricing and formulations and all these things, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at like John Meadows' model for Granite, when John started, he started with the cream of the crop products. He's like, I'm doing it the way it needs to be done. I'm doing it transparent. I'm putting everything in these products that I want to use, and that's how I'm going to sell it.
Yeah.
And he did that. And what happened was, a year in, he realized, I can't sell these products.
Yeah.
Like, I can sell them, but the average consumer, 98% of the buyers don't know what 16 of these ingredients are. Sure. They know citrulline, they know creatine, they know caffeine. They probably don't know what agmatine sulfate is, or Pico 2, or like a lot of these, luxury ingredients, I call them. But they jack up the price, and then it makes it hard to sell to stores, because stores want a certain amount of margin. And it also makes it hard to sell to the consumer, because the consumer, now you're paying for education. I now pay a lot in advertising dollars to educate the consumer that my product is $5 more, but it's because of all these ingredients that they don't even know what they are. So I have to pay to educate them. So long story short to the question is, I think now what we're doing is, how Mercedes has like a fucking G-Wagon, and then they have like their 300 series or whatever, their C series, which is like their lowest. What we did was we came out with the G-Wagon first. And I think if I could do it all over again, I might have done it the reverse.
Right.
Because I found what we're doing now is we came out with the G-Wagon, and now we're going to offer the C-Class. Because I want to be able to bring in those people that maybe don't have $55 for a pre-workout.
Right.
Yeah.
Is he
He's fine.
really?
It's fine. You like it.
Awesome.
Horrible.
Someone's going to come to my door soon, and you'll understand your dog is not a problem.
Yeah.
You made
Dusty will get an Amazon package, and it's all over
It's
with.
going to go mute, and all of a sudden my mouth will be moving, but the dogs will be barking, I'll be yelling, so you're fine.
Okay.
You made a product for you initially, and I feel like that's what we had done initially with the podcast, was making like content for like the hardcore competitor. And then you find it's like there's a lot more people, way more people well beyond that. And if you're going to ever, grow, it's got to be more mainstream. So I see where you're coming from.
It's funny you said that, because with the podcast, I did that.
Okay.
With the podcast, I was like, you know what? I want to do a podcast where the average person gets to understand that bodybuilders aren't just about chicken and rice, and they have the same sense of humor, and they have the same hobbies, and they have the same dumb jokes and immaturity that we all do.
Huh. Okay.
Right.
And so my objective with the podcast was to humanize bodybuilders, I guess, in a sense. Right?
Yeah.
Whereas when it came to my products, I was like, I want the best of the best. I want the stuff that I want to use. And I still want that, and we're still going to keep that. But I think what we're doing now is we're going to make an offering now for those people that maybe they want to spend $35 on a pre-workout. Maybe they don't want all the bells and whistles. Maybe they just want some caffeine and some citrulline, some creatine, and that's it. So we're gonna spread the offering out. So I think if like I said, the answer to the question, I guess, if I could do it all over again, is maybe I would have swapped those two things and started with the C class and then released the G-Wagon later on.
Right. That makes sense.
As a supplement company guy, what's your favorite event of the year?
The Arnold, by far. The Arnold, look, the Olympia is the best show on earth for bodybuilders. Everybody wants to be Mr. Olympia, but the Arnold was by far the best fan experience. I mean, for me anyway. I don't know. I think. What do you guys think? Do you guys agree or no?
Oh yeah, it's off the charts.
Yeah, the Arnold is better in some ways. Sometimes I find the Arnold more exhausting, which afterwards, like after it's over, I'm like, the Olympia is so much easier. So the Olympia is like cruisy. Everyone seems to be like, no one's dieting. Everyone's like done for a year.
Arnold, everybody's just getting started, right? Like they're getting pumped up for the season, and there's so many people
are dieting, and
there's just so many people that show up to that too.
Plus, it's a little more hectic for me because it's a connection flight. You got to fly to Toronto and then to Columbus, and it's like a little more.
He's just angry about his flights. That's all that
I'm
is.
angry.
Ron's just lazy. He's like, I don't want to fly.
I don't want a connection.
I don't want to work all weekend.
Ron planned a vacation 2 days after the Arnold this year. I wasn't dumb. I saw the dates that he sent me. I'm like,
oh yeah,
you're going the day after you get home from the Arnold, straight on vacation. I see what you're doing there.
Yeah, you need a week to decompress after that shit.
Yeah, I feel like you're going to learn a lesson there, Ron. I really do. I did that after one of my first big show, Fouad. I was like, all right, I'm going to do this show. It's going to be my first overall, which I won. And I'm going straight to Vegas because the show was in LA. Straight to Vegas. We're going to tear it up. Right. I slept for 36 hours straight. My wife sat in the room wondering why the hell we went to Vegas.
Yeah.
And then I kind of recovered and was like, we should do something wild. We could go to Outback.
Yeah. Might eat some rice.
Worst decision of my life.
Yeah.
Bodybuilding's exhausting. Dude. I don't plan anything. Around shows. I'm like, but like the Arnold question though, I think it's, aside from the busyness of it and the hecticness of it, like it's just such an experience for it. Like I went to the Arnold's, like the first Arnold I went to, I was 20 years old. And I think I went almost every single year since then, either as a competitor or a fan or whatever. But I don't know. I just think it's it's something about it too, being in like this little town. Well, not Columbus is a little town, but it's not.
No.
It's not in Vegas. It's like
the whole city.
Yeah, the whole thing is like it's just the Arnold. It's an experience in itself,
100%.
Yeah.
So I wanted to take it back just a touch because I don't know. It's funny, but a lot of your fans now know you as this. They know you as what you are now. You know what I mean? And obviously, some of them do their homework and look back and see. But when I started following you, so you guys I think know this, but Fouad does for sure. I followed Fouad when I first got into bodybuilding, and he was the only guy who was writing up like a blog of how prep was going.
You were ahead of the curve.
And what he was doing, which I loved, because here's this guy that's way on a level way above me, but he's telling me about how he's in prep and he's wasting a bunch of money. And I'm like, me too. There was a lot of things that really humanized the way you did that. It made it easy to be a fan because you're thinking, okay, here I am getting ready for my first big show. This guy's getting ready for his first Olympia. And we actually have common ground. And that was really helpful because when I started bodybuilding, especially as a guy who knew he wasn't genetically gifted, I'm like, I have nothing in common with these people except for having 2 arms and 2 legs. That's what I have, So I kind of feel like it was a really natural progression that I remember, I share these stories. I told a guy just the other day about some of your guys' bets. You having to do squats in the suit.
That's right.
Dude, that was amazing. The video.
There's probably a photo somewhere of it.
You gotta repost some of that squat footage.
Dude, he had to do, and then the best part is, of course, Paul is in there, and Fouad wants to loosen his tie so we can do the set, and Paul's like, "You can't loosen your tie in the office."
He's like, nope, you got to wear the suit. Yeah, he was fucking.
It was.
Yeah.
I mean, but as a fan, I was so amped because you know how it is. You don't when you follow the body, like back in the day when we had the videos. Yeah, you kind of watch the training, but it was all the other shit you wanted to see. Yeah. So seeing that stuff, showing up late and having to run a lap before you could start the workout, like it really did humanize. So it didn't really shock me that you were able to just go, well, now I have a new platform to do more of this.
Yeah,
it was natural.
Yeah, I've never looked at it that way. I never looked at it like it's kind of the same philosophy almost. But I didn't do that on purpose. I think it was just I don't think I would have ever gotten anywhere trying to play the I'm perfect card.
Right.
So like I don't think it was calculated on my part, like, oh, this is my angle into bodybuilding. I think it was just natural for me to be like, look, I'm just gonna tell people what the real shit is, and it's not all great. There are days
tell them before they call me out.
Yeah. No, I just because everybody, like, look, in the magazine era, everybody was perfect.
Yeah.
Everybody, and that's probably why you have some of that sentiment left over from the 90s. Because if you were a fan in the 90s, you never heard anything bad about your supposed mentor, idol, whoever it is that was bodybuilding, because all you heard was whatever was in the magazines. And those guys didn't write their articles. Somebody wrote the article for them, and they signed off on it, and that was it. And everything was sunshine and rainbows, like sunshine and bubblegum. Oh, it's perfect. Bodybuilding's perfect. I'm perfect. I never cheat on my diet. I never get hurt. That's not the truth. So I thought my angle into this thing where I can gain some traction is going to be to tell people that. And the thing I noticed about it was people really enjoyed it. Like you said, Dusty, they enjoyed like, hey, this guy is having a shitty day. I'm having a shitty day. I didn't think pros had shitty days.
Right.
So it's like people seem to enjoy the realness of it. And then the more people enjoyed it, the more people, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to lean into this because it seems to be what people want. They want to hear like the flip side of the coin, not just like, oh, this guy's perfect with his diet and this guy has great training sessions every single day. And, so it just kind of made sense for me to do it that way. And I was never a good enough pro physically to play the I'm perfect game. Because people would have been like, well, you're perfect, but you're a second tier bodybuilder. So I was like, this is my way kind of in to be like, look, I'm a professional and professionals have these flaws as well. Right. So I guess it kind of, like I said, I didn't plan it, but it kind of like people gravitated to it. So I ran with it.
Well, they kind of gave you permission to be yourself publicly, which is, I know you get this all the time because I do, and then less followers. It's like, how do I make it in the sport? And it's like, well, just be yourself, and the world will decide if they're interested in that. Right. Because everyone that's on your podcast, all the guys, I love it because I know them on a more personal level than most. And then also just seeing them, it's like, really, you have 5 people with very different personalities that have some common ground, but you definitely, like, Seth is Seth. There's no slipping around that. He's not trying to give you a better view of him. He's like, this is all I am, bro. So
you might actually be trying to give you a worse view. Is
that wrong?
I said he actually might be trying to give you a worse view.
Turns it up a hair. But I love that because it really was, as a fan, transparent for me. And I think you're doing the same thing now, which it does allow people to come up and see, because that's a huge hole in the whole thing. It's like, if you can run and be fortunate enough that the average is 90%, meaning you have your 100% days and times, and then you have the times where I don't even feel like going to the gym, and you take those days. But if it equals out to 90%, you're going to maximize your genetics and have a great time and a great career.
I just think, like, look, a couple things. One, I've said this many times, and it took me a long time to learn this, but all of us share the same experience, whether you're at level 1 or whether you're at the Olympia level. It's the same fucking experience for all of us. It's just a different level. But like, what I mean is this. Let's take Johnny decides to do a level 1 show. He's putting his heart and soul into it. Samson's getting ready for the Arnold. He's putting his heart and soul into it. These two people are experiencing the same things. Yeah. They're on different levels, and maybe Samson knows a little bit more about what to expect because he's done it. But you guys know as well as I do, no matter how many times you diet, you still kind of go through the same things. You still go through the hunger. You still go through the OCD things where you're using the same fucking spoon and the same bowl, and you're on Amazon shopping every night at 2 a.m. Like we're all doing this, whether you're 20 years old and you just started, or whether you're 40 years old and you're at the top. So I think just going to your point, Dusty, is like that's a really important thing for people to know, is that you're not special. You have an OCD problem just like the guy at the very top does. Mm-hmm. We're all going through it together, and I think there's almost like a comforting quality knowing that other people are suffering or going through the same mental anguish, or even going through some of the happiness that you're going through. Like all those feelings and emotions, there's a really nice quality. There's a nice comforting quality that comes with knowing that other people are sharing in that. And I think, sharing stories on the podcast or in a blog, for example, the one thing that really stands out to me is, and I don't want to necessarily get into it, but whenever I talk about any type of mental health issues, and I'm sure you guys have experienced this too, I get a slew of DMs from people that have had mental health issues that are just happy to hear that somebody else has them too.
Right? Yeah.
So
you don't need a solution.
No, they just want to know that they're not the only fucking one. So to me, it's the same thing in bodybuilding. If I go to the gym and I had a shit workout, and then I write down, you know what, I had a fucking shit workout today. I wasn't strong. It's probably because I didn't sleep last night. I didn't drink enough water, and my performance suffered. I'm going to come back better tomorrow. If I write that out or talk about it somewhere, somebody else felt that way too, but they were probably beating the shit out of themselves thinking that they're the only ones that have bad workout.
Yeah.
So it's kind of all in the same vein of making people feel a sense of community.
Yeah.
I can speak to that from the other side of the coin, being the guy who's watching, and having seen pros that showed their own humanity. It was at first shocking, like, oh my God, they're going through the same things. It's pretty, it's pretty cool to see that. And I think that we don't always recognize how many people that we really can help with the podcast too, which I think is a really cool part of it.
I'll give you an example, like Jay, right? Jay is like to me, I got this from John, but I call Jay the bodybuilder's blueprint. This is the guy who, if you want to follow what you should do as a bodybuilder on and off the stage, this is the guy, right? Mm-hmm. But I also can't relate to Jay, because whenever I see Jay or hear Jay online talk about bodybuilding, the guy never misses a meal, never fucking cheats on his diet.
Never has the whitest Nikes.
Yeah, never has a bad workout. His hair is always perfect. He's always in the best clothes. I'm like, I can't keep up with this person. I need somebody.
And that's where I come in. I'm way better than that guy. All right, he made it. Shit.
But I mean, that might also be why he's the bodybuilder's blueprint, is because he's got it all fucking figured out. But that's the thing. It's hard for people. People look up to Jay as a mentor because he's done so well and he's got it all figured out. But it's also hard for people to relate to Jay because not everybody's perfect in all those ways.
Yeah.
So it's good to have people in the industry that are relatable in some way.
Yeah. So big thing I wanted to push on here with you is the transition that you made from bodybuilder to, whether you want to own it or not, you're absolutely an entrepreneur's entrepreneur now. Like you're touching everything. Yeah. How was that transition for you? And how much did you know you were going through? For example, something simple that I had to learn how to do. You're done competing. You're no longer making every decision based on the next show. How did you figure out how you wanted to train and what you wanted to look like every day? Like that was a weird transition for me because I'm like, well, shit, I never really thought about what I looked like because it was always based on the next thing. And now I don't have a date.
You're gonna fucking hate my answer, and anybody who watches my podcast like regularly will know this answer's coming. I still haven't figured it out. I still haven't. Bodybuilding, I'm telling you, bodybuilding has left me with an eating disorder. I don't know how to be fucking normal. I'm either bulking or I'm dieting. I have not figured out that you don't have to do that anymore. Like, it's only been like this last month where I've kind of started to figure out like, okay, I can eat a little more calories. I don't have to Uber Eats. Like, it doesn't have to be Uber Eats every night or calorie deficit. It can just be clean food and maintenance calorie, right? So like, I just listen, man. My entire bodybuilding career was a series of extremes, and I know that sounds like it's a common sense thing to say because bodybuilding is extreme, but it's not. Within the extreme of bodybuilding, there are extreme ways to do it.
Yes,
right.
And I was that guy that went too far either way. It was like if I was bulking, I was fucking bulking. I was Lee Priest.
I hear you. I hear that rings with me, and I think it has a bit to do with our generation. Like we ate. Like, what do you mean you're done eating? Are you full? like that. Just the mentality between off season and contest dieting was a massive shift. Whereas now it seems the fashion like, it's just a small adjustment. You just drop out that little treat and you take out this muffin and now you're in a deficit. Yeah. And it was like, oh man.
It was before, man. Before
day one of my diet was like a 2,500 calorie drop. Day one.
Yeah. It wasn't only the calorie drop. It was, you changed all your food.
Everything.
Yeah.
All my pasta changed to rice.
Yeah. I went from eating like hash browns for breakfast to fucking oatmeal. I went
Eggo waffles with my oatmeal.
Yeah. Mac and cheese post workout to rice. Like the whole fucking diet changed.
I'd run into people who worked at restaurants and they'd be like, "Where have you been? I haven't seen you for like 3 months."
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So Dusty, go back to your question. Post bodybuilding, the first thing that happened to me was I was extremely happy to not have to eat. I was like, for honest to God, I'm telling you, for the first 6 months, I was like, this is what freedom feels like. I'm no longer chained. Yeah. Chained to the kitchen. You know what? I'm not hungry. I don't want to fucking eat. And then when I was hungry, I was like, you know what? I feel like a turkey sandwich. And I would just have like a deli meat turkey sandwich. And that was my dinner. Right. So I was like, for like 6 months, I had this really weird, like, just euphoric feeling of not needing to have Tupperware, not having to cook, not having to fucking think about my next meal. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to think about food until I'm hungry, which was very strange for me because for those people who don't know what it's like to be a competitive bodybuilder, your mind is constantly, you're eating, like while you're eating, you're like, what am I eating next? Mm-hmm. So
yeah.
Just to not have that food dialogue in my brain was like such a fucking relief.
Oh yeah.
And then after that came a phase where I was like, okay, so what do normal people eat? Like what? Like I couldn't. No, I couldn't.
It's so good.
I couldn't get away from like, when you put your plate out and you're like, okay, I got 8 ounces of steak and I got a cup of rice and I got
that'll never leave.
I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't I'm like, oh, this guy just has cereal and milk. And
how much milk? Does he measure it?
Or people that have like a bagel. They're like, I had a bagel.
Yeah. And? I couldn't. I was like, where's the protein? How come there's no protein in that meal? So I couldn't wrap my mind around like what normal people ate. So I don't know, man. It was weird, and I kept on going back and forth between diet, not diet, and like I said, I think I finally reached the point now where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stop putting pressure on myself. I like my diet food, my bodybuilding food. I don't care what normal people eat.
Right.
I like my chicken and rice and vegetables. I like my cream of rice and protein powder. I like my fucking ground beef and rice pasta. Those are my staples. So what I've learned now is I'm just going to eat those. The nice thing about now versus bodybuilding is now I only eat when I'm hungry. So I'll eat like 3 meals a day, sometimes 4, and that's I'm pretty good. But my meals still look like bodybuilding meals. They're not. I haven't strayed from that. I finally went full circle all the way back to I'm just going to eat bodybuilding food. I'm just going to eat less of it.
Right.
But it's been a tough transition, to be honest with you.
I think that might have been more for me than any listener, but I just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page. So we are.
So I'm going to see if this happens to you. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think Ron's right, though. I didn't consider that. Is a lot of it is, and this is why guys on the podcast sometimes and listeners sometimes, like the newer listeners, the younger listeners, have trouble identifying with what I'm saying. It's such a 2000 to 2010, or even 2015, and then 2015 to now is such a different. Like everything is different. The way your drugs are done, the way your food is done. The way training, like a lot of training principles are different. Like, it's one generation apart, but it's drastic. It's like flipped on its head. So I'm sorry, Ron, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, occasionally Emily will come across a photo of me, at a family event or something when I'm like 320. And she'll go, look at this monkey. And she'll show me the picture. She'll go, look at this fat monkey. She'll go, look at this juiced up parrot. And she'll give me a hard time. Does Summer ever see old photos of you, like 310, just big head?
I just posted one. Fuck, you guys got to see this. I can.
Scott can probably pull it up.
I'm on it. Is it on your story?
On my Instagram, you gotta scroll down like 10 rows.
All
1,
right.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 in the middle. 13 rows. There's one of me in a tank top there.
The only donut left at the Christmas party.
I think I was like 305 or something in that photo.
Oh, easy.
And I'm like 20% body fat, 15% body fat. And I was like,
there we go.
Oh, there it is.
It looks like my fucking cheeks are eating my face. Like, what the fuck is that?
Your mouth looks tiny. Fouad's got a tiny mouth.
Yeah, what the fuck happened to my head there? I can't believe I walked around like that and thought I looked like not that fucking weird. Like, that's a weird.
Yeah.
Like, now when
just a normal guy.
Yeah,
just a normal guy going to the mall.
I remember when I was going to the mall with Summer, I would throw a hoodie on, and I'd be like,
"There, no one can see me now."
Blending in.
I'm blending in, right? She'd be like, "Are you fucking stupid? You're 300 fucking pounds. It doesn't matter if you wear a fucking snowsuit. You're not blending in."
I know. I used to say that all the time. I'd be like, "Oh, I just got to cover up so no one bugs me."
Doesn't
just
matter.
Look at me. What are you talking about?
But it's
first guy I run into. How much can you bench?
Yeah. But it's so wild because you have no, like, when you're in the middle of it, you just have no fucking clue.
No.
What is going on? You're just in the. It's so crazy how bodybuilding is. You're in like this bubble where you can't see anything. You're just like, when's my next meal? When am I training? When's the next show? I literally don't care about anything else.
Yeah.
And it's fucking nuts to look back at.
Yeah, it's wild when you look back and see how big you were, and in that moment, you were not big. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like in your head, you weren't. I've seen pictures. Look, Ron and I saw some at MUTANT headquarters. I'm like, I used to look like that?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I do that all the time. I'm like, what the? I had 23-inch arms? Like, what happened? What happened to my arms?
Turkey sandwiches.
Yeah. That's what happened.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what the lowest your weight has gotten. What's the lowest your weight's gotten since you retired?
I think when I did carnivore last year, I thought
you were going to say when I did cardio that one time.
did cardio once, Ron. The next day I woke up, I was 1 pound lighter. No, I did carnivore for like 6 weeks. I think I got down to 244.
Oh,
I felt really skinny. Like I'm telling you. And it didn't look. I bet you if you saw photos, it wouldn't look like 244. It probably looks like 210.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I told someone the other day, like, how light are you now? And I said, I'm 238. And they said, oh, you could do classic. And I'm like, I look fucking horrible at 238. Like, listen, I wouldn't win a level 1 fucking beginner heavyweight show.
It's weird how that works.
People think, the people have that weight, they think it's all about weight. I'm like, no, it's about structure. I would be, for me to be classic, I would have to be like, I'd be so skinny up there. Like, they don't understand how, like, how Bumstead weighs 240 versus someone else weighing 240. It's like a completely different universe.
Yeah, I just need to gain 15 pounds. I'll be good.
Yeah, you make classic.
Yeah.
They forget that there's like the volume of the muscle.
I'd have like 18-inch arms. It's so terrible.
Yeah, the clarity of the skin. Like it's like the muscle cell is still there, so the weight is still there, but the muscle cell is just dead. Like it's not full and round. You know what I mean? So
no.
Like I'm 255 or something like that right now. Mm-hmm. But like I posted a video yesterday and I was 240. I look like absolute dog shit right now. Like I wouldn't take my shirt off at 250. Right. Like this 255 is horrible. And I'm sure I'm exaggerating. Like if most people saw it, they'd be like, it's not that bad. But to me, it's like, it doesn't matter if you're 255 if your arms are 16 inches around and your waist is 40 inches around. Like that doesn't, you know what I mean? It's not a good visual. So yeah, I don't, weight means nothing. But yeah, I got to 244 once. I'd like to, and I've been saying this for years, so people are probably going to scoff because it's never going to happen. But I'd like to be like a fit 230 one day.
Right.
It's kind of my ultimate goal. So
I hope that Dante's watching this so he can laugh at you saying that. Because I told him when I retired, I said, I'm going to get down to 240 as soon as possible. And he just sent back, won't happen. That's the only thing I got back. And I'm like, it will happen. And I mean, it did happen. I went into a coma and I woke up a month later. Bam, I was there. Yeah, and then I was 280 again a month and a half later. Like, shit.
Yeah.
I'm back.
Yeah.
So
it's funny. It's funny what Dante knows, man. The guy's like he's like an oracle for bodybuilding. Because he probably would have said the same thing to me, and I would have done the same thing you did. I'm like, no, you're wrong. I have to eat nothing to lose weight. Like I have to literally eat nothing.
Yeah.
My body's comfortable weight at like 15% body fat right now is 260. That's where my body is like comfortable at. It's crazy.
It's so easy to hold. It's funny because Ron is the same way, and I can prove it because every time he hangs out with me, he gains 10 pounds.
Yeah. And then when I come home from whatever trip it was and I go to the gym and get a pump, I'll have at least 3 people go, oh, are you like sizing up again?
Back on?
You back on? You pop a few Dbol? Like, no, I ate burgers with Dusty for 2 days. And I filled out.
You know what's funny about that generational thing we were talking about too? I don't think guys use Anadrol and Dbol anymore.
Oh, no. Maybe the Anadrol. Dbol is the least popular compound ever. No.
I don't hear anybody talk about it.
Yeah.
I know. And then also, too, another thing I don't get, Fouad, do you remember any of us having any stomach problems with Dbol and Anadrol?
I did.
I never had it.
It wasn't until I hit 30. That's actually why I stopped taking Anadrol, because there was a year, all of a sudden, I think it was probably because they went from like real Anadrol to like shitty underground stuff. But there was one year specifically, I remember I just couldn't tolerate it. I would take an Anadrol, just one. I wasn't ever like a 100 milligram, 150 milligram guy. I was a 50 milligram a day. Mm-hmm. And I even tried to split it. I'm like, you know what? Maybe if I take 25 in the morning and then 25 like later on before my workout, like that'll work out. It didn't matter. It was just all of a sudden, one year I popped it and I just couldn't eat. I was eating one meal a fucking day, and I'm like, I can't do this. This is pointless.
Yeah, you can't grow.
It defeats the purpose.
Yeah. I don't ever remember. I don't know if we were just like, you know how like if you're psychologically like just not going to stop eating. I don't know if we just refuse to acknowledge it. Like, and just, you're just going to stuff your food down. Like, I don't know if maybe that's what we were doing, but I just don't remember any of us having a hard time eating on Dbol. Nowadays, it seems like people take Dbol for 3-4 days and they got all these, I'm getting the messages, oh man, I'm having a hard time eating. And I'm just like, I never experienced that.
I don't think, I don't think it was, you would have known, Ron. Like I'm telling you, because I'm not the biggest eater, but I'm not a small eater.
Right.
And all of a sudden, my appetite was just gone. I couldn't, and I was never one of these guys that had to force feed food in the off season. I could usually get in, 5,000-6,000 calories pretty easily. And it just stopped. It was literally like, I'm telling you, when I say one meal, I wasn't exaggerating. I would eat one meal and I would be like, I couldn't eat again for the rest of the day.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You've done a few of those big, crazy challenges.
Yeah.
Idiot. What's the worst you've ever felt from eating?
I saw it on video.
The 20,000 calories. Ooh. I wasn't joking in the video when I said I think I'm going to die. Like I thought I was going to die.
You were second guessing whether you should go to the hospital.
I do have to tell you this though. So after the challenge, I realized I did the math wrong.
I looked really good.
No, listen. I woke up the next day, I looked great. I was like, fuck it. No. I realized I did the math wrong. So during the challenge, I thought I was at like 15,000, but I was really at like 18 or like 17.5.
Oh, God. So, you started pushing.
So I stopped because I'm like, I can't do another 5. But had I known I was at 18, I would have pushed through the next 2.
You would have hammered through it.
You would have made it even worse.
Yeah.
That was kind of a bummer, but honestly, man, in that video, I think I say it in the video, I don't know, but I think I said in the video, I think I'm gonna fucking die. And I remember like the back of my head was pulsing and like my head was throbbing, and I'm like, I don't know, man. I think my blood sugar, my blood pressure is probably like over 200. I'm like, I probably should stop. And then my wife started to get worried at the time. She's like, look,
you're not going to win.
Yeah.
Loser.
They're like, you don't win anything. Like, you're not going to win anything. Like, just stop.
Your heart rate just pounding. You must have been at like 150 beats a minute.
I could feel I remember I could feel my heart beating in my temple.
Yeah.
I was like,
good sign.
I'm like, this is not good. So I'm like, just guys, I'm like, we got to wrap it. I threw in the towel. I'm like, I'm fucking done. Now, if I had to do it all over again, I know I could do the 20. I would just do it differently. Because my problem was in the middle of the challenge, I did this home cooked meal, which is always going to be less. It's always going to be less calories than a meal at a restaurant.
Yeah.
So I did a ground beef, olive oil, pasta, and pasta sauce meal. Which, if you just think of that, the olive oil, the ground beef, the fucking, it killed me for like, it took me out for a little while.
Should have just had a box of Pop-Tarts.
Yeah.
Way smarter.
Yeah. And I also didn't train that day, which would have definitely helped had I like maybe done a 2 a day that day or something.
Yeah.
Kind of move around some of the food. So anyway, Ron, that is, Yeah, there's nothing that compared. I was actually like literally scared. So I was like, yeah, we're done. Tap that one out.
Damn. So I've got a question for you that came through I think I saw the one half of it was on Dusty's question box, and then I had someone else ask a question. So from our era and still up till currently now, 2 of the best known coaches, just for kind of the craziness that they both contributed to bodybuilding, are Chad and Haney.
Yes.
And you worked extensively with both of those gentlemen.
Yeah.
What are some things you could say about, we'll start with Chad. What did you do with Chad that you think, oh wow, I would have never done that without him, and he helped me, because you turned pro with Chad?
It's a cool question. I like this.
I think I've never been as shredded as I've been with Chad. Chad taught me what real suffering was. Like, there was a year, I remember, it's funny when guys think they're ready now. I remember a year, like the first year I worked with Chad, I think we were getting ready for the Nationals. I think that year I took second. Or I won the super heavyweight class, but I didn't win the overall.
2005 in Montreal? Was that your first year with Chad?
I think
2004 in Edmonton.
2004 was my first year with Chad.
You won the heavyweights.
I won the heavyweights, and they gave 2 pro cards to 2 supers, which was really fucked. But anyway, as you can tell, I'm not bitter about it still to this day.
21 years later.
Chad taught me what real suffering was, because when I say he got me the most shredded, I'm not saying that was my best look. I'm just saying it's my lowest body fat. Right. Because he took me to a place where I was like, I remember getting ready for the show, and I'm like, I think I was 2 or 3 weeks out, I can't remember, and I'm like, I'm ready. I'm fucking ready. I can see lines everywhere. I'm fucking ready. And I sent him my photos, and he goes, okay, we got one more level to go. And I'm like, what the fuck is this guy seeing that I'm not seeing? Because I see striations everywhere. And he's like, the striations aren't deep enough. And I'm like, what? I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize that, right? Like, when you're dieting, you look for certain things. Like, you see your glutes, you see your lower back, you see your abs, whatever. Like, you pinpoint little spots, like maybe the separation between your delt and your tricep. And I think when you start seeing some of that separation, you're like, okay, I'm ready. I can see the separation. Chad wanted that separation. He wanted to like stick a fucking credit card in it. He wanted it to be, wanted the striations to be so visible that you could see him from a mile away, right? Like, it was etched in. We had to go another level. I remember when I was done that prep, I remember going home to see my mother before I left for Saskatoon. And she's like, you got to stop. Like, you look like you have to go to the hospital. She's like, my eyes, they talk about death face. Like, my eyes were sunk into my fucking head. Like, she's like, I don't want you. She was really worried. She's like, I don't want you to do this anymore. And I'm like, no, this is how it's supposed to be. So Chad definitely taught me that factor. I remember times with Chad. It's funny when I hear people complaining about their preps now. I remember there would be times, so we had to do 2 cardios a day. And the second cardio, usually they were 45-minute sessions. If he really was pushing me, it would be like one of them would be an hour. And I remember going in for my night session. The way Chad would set it up is you have your morning cardio on empty stomach, then you would train after like 2 or 3 meals, and then you would go back and do your last session before your last meal. And then your last meal of the day had no carbs in it. So you'd eat meal 5, then you would go do your last cardio, and then you'd come home, eat meal 6, and go to bed. So I'd go back at like 11 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night to do my second cardio. I swear to you, there was a stretch of like 3 weeks where I could pinpoint it to the second. Around like 7 minutes and 34 seconds, I would start to go hypo. I could fucking feel it. I'm like, okay, here it comes. So instead of getting off the step mill, I reduced it from like level 5 to like level 2. So anybody watching me is like, what the fuck is this guy doing? He's not even doing cardio, because I'm just like literally trotting on fucking step mill at level 2, right?
Covered in sweat,
But it's like I was shivering. I had a hoodie on. I'm shivering. I'm drenched. Like it's just, you know how it is when you're hypo.
Oh yeah.
And I literally, like, my eyes are closing, and I'm like, I gotta do my cardio. I literally would get through from 7 minutes and 34 seconds, or around 8 minutes, to the 45-minute mark. That's what it was like. Just enduring this fucking hypo fucking glycemia. Then I would get off, and I would go down to the front desk, and I had to drive home. And I'm like, I can't drive. Like, I can barely fucking walk right now. So I remember at the front desk, they would have, the big styrofoam cups that they make your protein shake with.
Yeah.
So I would take one of those styrofoam cups, and they used to have free coffee. I would take the free coffee, and I would fill the styrofoam cup like 3/4 of the way with coffee, and I'd put like 4 sweeteners in it. And I would drink it on the fucking way home, and that's the only way I could get home from my cardio, is the sweetener
at night.
And this is at night, yeah. And then I would go home, And my last meal was usually like 75 grams of whey with like a tablespoon of peanut butter. So I'd make that into a pudding. I'd fucking eat that shit. And I would just lay there awake till like 2 or 3 in the morning because I have all the coffee I had to drink to get home from the fucking cardio. So it's like, you know, like I coached the guy once that I had to fucking fire. I fired this client because I came in one day and he's sitting in the lobby at the gym. And I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like, just doing cardio. He's like, my feet hurt and I feel a little hypo. And he was eating a granola bar. Oh. And I looked at him and I said, you're fucking fired. I go, I'm not helping you. He goes, what do you mean? And all I could think was, I used to do 35 minutes of fucking hypo cardio and your feet hurt? He's like, fuck you, man. I'm like,
I can't take your emails anymore.
So that's why like the coaching thing never worked out for me because I was expected people to have the same drive, and if they didn't, I didn't want to bother with it. So the coaching thing was never a thing. But
I heard a guy ask you one time. I saw you and I went over to talk to you one time, and you were busy having a little chat. And I hung back just for a minute, and I heard you say to the guy, all I heard was, "Listen, if you're going to hire me, it's my fucking way or the highway." And he just said, "Okay." And then you guys like shook hands and he walked away. And I was like, oh, Fouad's getting a client.
Or not.
Or I scared him away. So Chad taught me how to suffer. On the negative side, if you consider it negative, Chad also shaped my bodybuilding experience as a whole with the extremes that I was talking about. Mm-hmm. So most of the extremes that I learned from Chad, because with Chad, if you were bulking, you were fucking bulking. Like he was gonna make you eat. He was gonna make you eat more food than you've ever fucking eaten before. He was gonna make you
relentless and never let up.
Yeah, there was never. Yeah, it was fucking insane. So, and then when you were dieting, we would go 6 days in like a fucking 2,000 calorie deficit, and then he would say, okay, take the day off now, go eat whatever you want. So it was like constantly this like just up and down, super extremes one to another, but it worked. And it was his style of coaching. And you know, I got my pro card. I won, you know, some of my amateur shows, and I got some good placings with him in the pros. Inevitably, I left because I think he had a lot of clients, and I was at the bottom of that totem pole. You know, like I was at the Olympia with him, and he had like 4 other guys at the Olympia, and I just didn't feel like I was on the same level as, you know, a Dennis Wolf, a Dennis James, these other guys, and I wasn't getting the coaching that I needed, I thought. So I left him inevitably, but not because he was a bad coach, just because I think sometimes these guys take on so many people that they have to prioritize who they're going to focus on, right? Like, it's only human nature. If you have a guy that's going to place 3rd at the Olympia and a guy who's going to be 12th, you're going to probably focus a little bit more of your attention on the guy who's going to be 3rd or greater. So I don't blame him at all for it. Haney taught me the opposite. Haney taught me more moderation, more consistency, more health, more play the long game, more stop looking for fucking little tricks. Like Chad had a lot of tricks like that. Like the video I posted yesterday on my Instagram, that was a insulin load that me and Chad did and I had never done that before I met Chad. And there was a lot of tricks that we would play, like a little bit of insulin and a little bit of like, okay, now we're going to do some chocolate cake and we're going to do some this and we're going to do some that. And I'm like, next thing I know, I'd walk on stage and I'd look phenomenal. And I'm like, okay, well, his sorcery worked because I'm shredded and I'm full. Haney was the opposite. There was no trickery. There was like, we're playing the long game. We're playing the safe game. This is how you're going to look. This is how you're going to look tomorrow. This is how you're going to look on stage. And it's kind of a totally different philosophy. And I don't think I have a negative to say about Haney. I don't think anything Haney ever did was wrong, I guess. So, I learned a lot from it. Like, sometimes people say like, oh, it's bad to flip coach to coach to coach. But at the same time, I learned a lot. I learned a lot from Chad. I learned a lot from Haney. After Haney, I worked with Dennis James for a little bit. After Dennis, I worked with John. After John, I worked with Aceto. Aceto and Dennis was one prep. Aceto was a very short period of time. But like John, Haney, and Chad really shaped the way they shaped my entire bodybuilding experience.
I remember it might have been like 2014 or 15, and they had that geared up gathering at Ken Jackson's gym in Michigan.
Yeah,
and you were there, and John was there. A bunch of people were there. And I remember I think you were working with John at that time, and he had you peel down. He was like, hey, pull your shirt off, man. And I remember you specifically hitting a rear lat spread in that garage door. That was cool. What would you throw in with John? What did you learn from him?
John is my ultimate mentor for everything, for bodybuilding, for life, for just being a fucking man. Like, I can't say enough good things about John. And the fucking craziest thing about John is he didn't intend to be a teacher. Like, he didn't sit me down and say, okay, this is how you should act. This is how you need to be a man. This is how you should behave in public. John was a teacher just by me watching. I watch this guy and I'm like, this guy's breezing through life. Like, he's got it all figured out. Like, people love him. He talks to people with respect. He's got a beautiful family. He's got his home paid off. He's got multiple businesses on the go. Like, he kind of like seemed to just kind of float through life knowing how it all worked. And everybody kind of gravitated to him because he was floating. Like, it was a really weird, he was on a different level than everybody else. That's what it seemed like. Like,
yeah,
he never seemed bothered by anything. He was just like very chill, like whether it was prep, whether it was like getting in shape, whether it was maybe the business wasn't doing as well as he wanted to do. He just seemed to just handle things. And that was probably one of the biggest things I took from him, or tried to take from him. Learning how to treat people, learning that he was kind of an extension of Haney in that safe, consistent behavior is the way to do it.
Yeah.
There's no like going back to Ron's point about like the generational thing from like the extremes. John was the first guy ever to look at me and go, why are you stressed out about prep? We're going to do the exact same thing. We're just going to peel out like 300 calories. Just relax. Because I would always get anxious. I'd be like, oh, it's time to prep. It's time to prep. And John would be like, dude, just calm the fuck down. All we're going to do is add a little cardio in and remove 100 grams of carbs. Just take, So I think the biggest thing with John was, as far as the bodybuilding aspect goes, is I was always a very anxious bodybuilder. And I don't mean just anxious socially. I mean like anxious about being on stage, anxious about how I looked. Yeah. Oh, do I look good enough? Maybe I shouldn't go on stage. Maybe we should pick a next show. Like these self-doubts. And I think John, the biggest impact John had on my life was being able to just keep me calm. He didn't have to say anything, but it's because he was so calm, it always kept me a little bit more calm. So he was very good for me in that sense.
That's cool. I wondered, because I know that you guys were close, and I didn't know him nearly like you did, but I looked up to him so much. So I like hearing stuff like that. And I'd seen you around a bunch of stuff with Detroit, occasionally. Like I remember seeing a video of you training at Highland Park Powerhouse. I don't remember when that was, but I also wanted to ask, and I'm sure we're probably going to want to transition over talking about the Detroit Pro, so this could be a good segue. Did you spend much time as a pro? Did you ever come across the border much to train in Detroit?
Not as much as I should have. There's a lot of things I would have done differently if I could go back. One of them was not enjoying my time as a pro enough. And I don't know if Ron or Dusty feel that way, but like I was so hyper focused on the next show, the next meal, the next training session, that I forgot. James said it best on the podcast, the last podcast we were talking about Samson. And we were talking about how Samson travels so much, and he's always in all these different fucking places. Every week he's somewhere, Italy, Germany, Korea, it doesn't matter, right? And we were talking about what it would be like if we won the Olympia. Because James is a little bit like me this way. If we won the Olympia, we would just be home. We wouldn't leave the house. We're like, oh, I gotta win again next year, so I can't leave the house, because if I leave the house, I won't make any progress. So I gotta stay home and get my meals in. So, and James said to me, yeah, but imagine the experiences that Samson's having. Like, who knows how long he's gonna be Mr. Olympia for? And then he compared it to Brandon Curry. He's like, I don't really remember, and maybe Brandon went somewhere and I don't know, but we don't really remember Brandon traveling that much. It's probably because of COVID too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Brandon was only Mr. Olympia for 1 year. He didn't really get to go experience what it was like to walk into a gym in Italy and be Mr. Olympia, or walk into a seminar in fucking France and be Mr. Olympia. Like, Samson gets to experience that every fucking weekend in all these different countries. Yeah. So going back to your question, I didn't train over there as much as I should have. And I think I should have done a lot of things differently as a pro, because I didn't get to experience the joy of going to train at different gyms and just living that way. You know what I mean? I trained at some, there's the original Powerhouse on Woodward. It's one of my favorite gyms. It's got they got pictures everywhere, and it's just got a lot of, there's a really good atmosphere in there.
Yeah.
I've trained there a bunch of times. I like it there. But no, I never ventured out as much as I should have.
I love that gym too.
Oh, that's such an amazing gym. They got the wood, still got wood walls on it. Like, it's crazy.
Drea still comes out there sometimes, and there's so much history to it. It's a cool place. I want to throw in really quick too. I feel like that might be, when we talk about the generational stuff, I was never at any of your guys' level, but I feel like 10 years ago you would compete, and then after you're done, you immediately went in off season. There was no, nowadays it's different, where you're like, now I'm going to spend the next month staying in shape and doing pictures and content. And I think it's, back then it was just like, now I got to get back to the grind,
Well, I thought of that, but then I thought of someone like Jay. I don't know how much. I think Ronnie traveled quite a bit too, but I think of Jay especially, because I know Jay would finish the Olympia, and then there would be like a 3-month block where he was just somewhere new every week,
like Iceland, Finland, just all over the place.
It was weird. I think there was Dorian didn't go anywhere. I think Ronnie went to some places. Jay, I think, traveled everywhere.
Yeah.
Phil I think Phil was more in a Ronnie camp where they went somewhere but not everywhere. Mm-hmm. And then from there, it's a bunch of people that didn't travel. Sean Roden didn't travel that much. Brandon didn't travel. Rami didn't travel. A lot of that has to do with COVID too, I think. Samson's really the first Olympia winner since Jay to get out and really expand the Olympia brand.
Yeah. Hey,
go ahead.
Oh,
I was gonna ask you. Pro bodybuilder, supplement company owner. Would you say you have the biggest podcast in the space? You get the most viewers in the space?
I don't think I have the most viewers. I mean, there's people like Derek from More Plates, More Dates.
Oh, yeah. I guess I'm sort of thinking of
it depends how
pro body.
It's the scope of what you mean when you say fitness, right?
Right.
If you're talking about hardcore bodybuilding, probably yes. But if you're talking about no.
Yeah, so you got all this stuff going on, and then also you add to it show promoter. So obviously, tell us a bit about the Detroit Pro coming up. What's the deal with that? Is this your third year with a pro show? Second.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So what's going on with that?
The Detroit Pro is a throwback show, and the reason I say that. Nowadays with the Olympia and the Arnold and a lot of these bigger shows, you see a lot of LED screens. You saw a lot of big backdrops and a lot of or it's in a hotel hall somewhere, things like that. And I think there was a period of time where I used to gripe about those things. And after hearing Dan Solomon explain why the show is as grandiose with the screens and all that as it is, I fully understand why. And I think it's important. That being said, I think our show is small enough that I can still do just the black backdrop, and I can do just the black curtain and make it just old school bodybuilding. I don't have 15 different classes. I got bodybuilding, and this year we're adding classic. Maybe one day we'll add more classes, wellness or bikini or whatever. But like for now, I got bodybuilding and I got classic, and those are the two things I'm focused on. We have the MPC side of it, which is the amateur side. We have all the classes for the amateurs, right? You come in, we give you a platform to compete. But when it comes to the pro side, I just wanted to do a show the way I wanted to do it. It's like, the way I see it is this. We all of us do this. We all sit online, and every time a show comes around or something happens in bodybuilding, we're like, well, I would have done it this way. I would have done it like this. Why don't they give out more prize money? Why don't they do better lighting? Why don't they do this? And I was like, hey, we can fucking do this. Right. Like, instead of sitting online just complaining, why don't we go get a show, put the lighting up that we want to put up, put the backdrop up that we want to put up, give away the prize money that we think we can afford to give away, and let's just do it our fucking way. Mm-hmm. And because I have two partners in Paul and Ben that are hardcore bodybuilders themselves, they're not pros, but they live the life. They're like, and they want to see the same thing. They're like, yeah, let's fucking do it that way. So right. It's been, I call it a passion project. Okay. Because if I was going to make more money, if it was a business endeavor, I would have it in a hall somewhere. I would put up like a 3-foot stage. I would put up some normal lighting, whatever. And I would just put some pipe and drape around the stage and be done with it. Just run the show. Right. I would minimal cost, $5,000 to rent a hall somewhere, and then just take as much money as I can and split it with Ben and Paul and put it in our pockets. We're not doing that. We got a really nice venue. We have a venue that has a banquet hall, so we can do a meet and greet with like Mr. Olympia, and Ian's going to be there, Martin's going to be there, the whole slew of pros are going to be there. And then on the other side is a theater, which is a real theater with real theater seating, with a real stage and nice backdrop. And so we're spending the money to do it right, and we're giving away more. It's not a big deal anymore, because now all of a sudden out of nowhere we have like $500,000 shows. But for a long time, if people remember, the shows were $10,000.
Yeah,
and last year we gave away, I think we were one of the first small shows. We did $27,500 for first place. So I think we're doing another $27,500 this year, and we're also adding classic. I don't know how much. I don't think we decided full yet what the classic prize money is going to be. I think it's 15. But yeah, it's a passion project. It's a kind of nod to, hey, this is how we think bodybuilding should be done. So
when's the date of that show?
March 29th. All the information's on the website. It's at DetroitPro.com. You can go there. You can register. You can get tickets. You can check out the venue. You can check out the host hotel. All of the information is there. We're probably going to be doing a posing clinic in the next few weeks here with Martin and Alexis. Alexis is a Olympian wellness competitor, and obviously most of your listeners probably know who Martin is. Yeah. So they're going to be doing a posing clinic with us. That's going to be free for any of the amateurs registered to the show. So we try to do these little, and then we also actually added a raffle for the people registered to the show if they registered before February 1st. I thought this was kind of fun. We did a thing where if you win, you get to have breakfast with Mr. Olympia and the boys the day after.
Okay.
So so the winner gets to go with Samson, James, probably me, Ben, Ian, whoever, get to go to a breakfast spot and just pig out and talk about their experience the night before.
That's cool. That would be really cool. And is it the same venue that you guys did in Dearborn last year?
Yep.
That's like 10 minutes from my house. I competed at that venue like 2011 or something like that. It's a really cool spot, and it's one of my favorite memories on stage. It'll be perfect. It really will.
Yeah, they told me they've been doing bodybuilding shows there for a while. I just think it's the perfect setup for everything. It's got so many things going on in there with the banquet hall and all of everything that I think it offers a lot for the show. But anyway,
there's really good food, guys. If you're heading out there, there's the best Middle Eastern food in Dearborn, so you got to check that out.
Well,
anyway,
I was asking about that though, because I feel like for a lot of our listeners, I've been encouraging my amateurs that want to eventually work their ways up the ranks. Like if they've already done a local show, I've been kind of pushing them to leave the state and go experience what it's going to be like at the next level. Because, when being in Canada, like you didn't get to drive from your house to nationals all the time. You got to go somewhere. And not only is it a different experience from the bodybuilding standpoint, but my best memories of my entire career took place in hotel rooms, in breakfasts, after shows, and none of them were the shows at home. So when I saw your show last year, and when you said you were doing an amateur one, my immediate knee jerk was, if you're an amateur and you're considering competing around that time, make the trip, because you're going to have the experience that we talk about it. And it I don't mean, like you said, I'm not trying to hammer on all the shows and how they do things. I don't run a show, but I do miss how it used to be. And it gives people the opportunity to do those things, because I'm telling you, when you get done, whether you become Mr. Olympia or you do 2 or 3 shows and stop, it'll be those memories that roll through with your friends and your family and your coach in the room or whatever, sending pictures, and it's invaluable on the memory department. So if you're serious about doing a show, I really think that's a good time to step out, and then you can experience the next level, because it is nice, that I did a few shows out of the state before I went to Junior National, because I had done it. I was like, I know what to do. I know how to show up here. I know how it works, the hotel room and the microwaves. And so I think I can't push that enough for guys. And listen, I'm the guy that still bitches about the stage, and I don't really care if it's the right move. It still bothers me. So go compete where there's a black stage. And the most important thing in the world of the promoter is how you look, because that to me is what bodybuilding was.
I mean, I honestly, for me, I kind of like, if we end up being the only throwback show of the year, I like that. That's kind of our thing. Like, we're the fucking 1970s. We're stuck in the 1970s. We want to do a black backdrop with fucking awesome lights. That's what we're doing.
You need a little posing podium and go right back to the whole.
Nobody can move.
No, I just think it's there's something very you guys gotta understand. Like, I can't explain it. At the show last year, because we just had bodybuilding, and we didn't have a big show, but we had a good show because Martin and Vito were very close.
Yes.
The show was very fucking intimate. Have you ever been to a concert?
Oh yeah.
Have you ever been to a concert at like a venue with like 300 seats?
Oh yeah.
And a big band.
And you feel like it's you and like Dave Matthews, and you're in this fucking or Allison James or something, and you're in like a little you're like, they're playing for me. I'm sitting. That's what the show felt like last year, because you're in this theater. It's all black. It's just bodybuilding. There's not fitness. There's not bikini. It's just bodybuilding. You're sitting there and you get to like really appreciate. And because it was just bodybuilding, the judges took their time. They're like, we're going to make you guys fucking work. And they posed them. And the crowd had a really good time. And you know what? It's a small show. I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud that we're able to do the throwback style to the show. And that I'm also very thankful to the IFBB that they haven't tried to stop us from doing it. They kind of liked it. Like Tyler was there judging last year, and he's like, this is kind of cool. He's like, I know not everybody can do this. He's like, but I really like, I like what you guys have done. So that kind of felt nice too, to get like the tip of the cap from the brass. And the other thing is they want us to grow the state. Like if you go to Texas, if you have a show in Texas, you're automatically getting 200-300 competitors in the NPC on the NPC side.
Yeah.
In Michigan, it's not like that. In Michigan, it's like 30, 40, 50.
Yeah.
So they're like, look, we want you to do this. We want you to grow the show. We want you to bring the interest back to bodybuilding in Michigan. So this is what we're trying to do. So hopefully we get a lot of the NPC people come out, do the show, enjoy the prizes, enjoy meeting all the pros, enjoy meeting Mr. Olympia, and just have a good time.
Yeah. That'd be awesome. I could definitely imagine looking back, because one other thing I was going to add as an amateur is the promoter in Arizona used to do a real setting like that too. And it was actually nice because my parents at the time and family and friends, they didn't really know. Bodybuilding wasn't popular back then. Mm-hmm. So it was nice when they came in and the venue was nice. Because they were like, oh, this is that. You know what I mean? And it really helped, because then later in my career, when we were in like dumpy high school, as my parents were like, this is kind of what I thought it would be.
Right.
You said, Dusty, you're totally right. And I think that's where I get it from. The very first show I ever did was the Windsor Cup, and Nimrod King put that show on. And for those who don't know, Nimrod, for those watching who don't know, Nimrod King was one of the original mass monsters in the 90s. Canadian. And he lived in Windsor, and he held the Windsor Cup, and I competed at his show. It was my very first show, and it was in the Chrysler Theater, which is a beautiful theater with a massive stage, just like the one we have in Dearborn. And I think that's where that's why I have that philosophy, because I'm like, I remember what it was like to do my first show on a real stage and a real theater with real lights, and not just some like dinky little setup somewhere. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I totally agree with you, Dusty. And I think the same thing too, because my parents came to that show.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself, they get to sit in a nice theater in a nice auditorium and enjoy the show. You know what I mean? So I think those things matter, you know?
It paints a different picture for people. And I know it's more well known now, but it definitely changes things, and it's nice when you see those. So I'm stoked that you guys are doing it that way. Doesn't really shock me, but I like it. I don't think you really know how to halfway do stuff, which I think, one common question that I got a lot of DMs when you were coming on the show. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, I can't believe Fouad's coming on your guys' show. And so I responded to one, and I go, what do you mean?
He's been on before.
He's like, well, because you guys you're battling podcasts. I said, so I had to
got like 10 times the viewers.
Right.
I had to bring this up for people though, because I was like, because more than one asked. I'm like, well, he's also coming on as Hosstile, as his brand. And this show is sponsored by Mutant. And Ron's a coach, and Scott's a coach, and I'm a coach. And I think people need to understand that the industry is enormous. And just the lesson for the up-and-comers is like, there's plenty of food for everyone to eat. So if we just all, if you work together, bring this stuff, the entire industry grows. Everyone can be more successful. And oh, by the way, when I wasn't with Mutant for a year, Ron and I didn't stop being friends.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The business doesn't change, and it's just, I see a lot of it. And like I said, I was stunned because there was like 4 people that DM me separately, and I'm like, where did this come from?
Dusty, can I tell you something? I think there are some bad actors in our sport, without naming them.
Okay.
There are just some people in our sport that have a platform that don't really aim to help. They aim more to hurt and bring drama to the sport where it's not needed, because drama brings them views and brings them whatever.
Yes.
So right. I think they've created and painted this picture of everybody's against each other, or Fouad's against everybody, or whatever the story they've told.
Right.
People have bought it and run with it, not realizing that we're all friends. I'm friends with everybody out there who has a minus like 2 people. I'm friends with like everybody out there.
I'm not friends with everybody, but that's good for you. I'm more of an asshole. I've got some people I don't fucking like, but
there's 2 people.
Okay, wait a minute. If you come across
definitely
somebody
2 people
who is friends with everybody, that person's not a real motherfucker. So
agreed.
I'm sorry.
Right.
So there's 2 people, but other than those 2 people, I'm friends with everybody. I don't, and you know what? And Ron, the views don't matter. If you had 1 million views, we would still be friends. It wouldn't be like, well, Ron's got 1 million views, I'm not going on his channel. Like, it's so fucking stupid. And like you said, you guys are all sponsored by Mutant.
Yeah.
It's like, you didn't say to me, well, you know what, you're a Hosstile guy, you can't come on. And
well,
Ron's been on my podcast, Dusty,
I've been on
I was your first guest.
Your podcast.
Yeah, Ron,
I was your first guest.
Yeah,
That was
you were my
before.
first.
There was no video for that, was there, Ron? Was there video? For that? There was. Okay.
That's my claim to fame. I made his show. I made that show.
Without Ron, you wouldn't be here.
So he's sitting there by himself on his webcam.
No, but I'm glad you said that, man, because it was disappointing to me, because we all know, and I've heard this at this low, like I see it in the gym. You see the guys who, it's like there's a battle between two guys in the gym that don't even compete against each other. And I'm like, back in the day, we were all friends and still are. Like when I wish, and it's funny because you brought up the breakfast thing, and my wife had that opportunity last year when we were at the Arnold. We sat down and we went to breakfast. Ron and I and her went to breakfast at the Arnold, and Jay was sitting a little bit, and he goes, "Come sit over here." So we sit down, and we walked away, and she goes, I always knew that Jay was the best at being Jay. And she goes, and now I understand it.
Yeah.
Because it was just, he was asking about South Carolina and all these things. And I'm like, I just wish more people understood that behind all the scenes that you guys see, it's not that way. How we had the best training session when Dino's wasn't open, with your whole crew and our whole crew just blasting away in a private gym. And that was in England. You were sick.
Oh, that's right.
You hadn't gotten sick yet? I think you got sick like the next day.
I was there the first night. I was there the first night. That's right.
You were there the first night. Yeah.
It was awesome.
And it was amazing. No, and I think, the loudest, what is it? The squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Right.
Yeah. So I think these bad actors, for lack of a better term, say things over and over and over and over again. And it starts to become people's reality. People need to understand that the reality is 95% of all of us, like in the industry, are all acquaintances, friends, whatever word you want to put on it. Like, Ron, how many times have you been at the show and I've met up with you, and like you and Paul meet up and I'm there and you guys are like, we're just have dinner or whatever. Like, it's people need to understand that there's no competition. We're all just doing podcasts. It's just entertainment. Yeah. We're all just trying to have some fun.
Like, every time I hook up with Paul on the road, he's like, "Oh, by the way, we're going to eat with Fouad." I'm like, "Oh, okay." He's waiting for us right now.
We came and I know that, but okay, I'm here now. So.
I had a question for you. I know we've kept you for a while. We appreciate your time.
Oh, I'm good, man. I'm not in a rush. I don't care.
I know. We get a kick out of the fact that we have never mind, hundreds, Scott? I'll say hundreds.
In the teens.
In the teens, at least. Maybe teens, maybe in the teens, of female listeners and female viewers. And the hardcore chicks that dig our podcast and listen to us babble about nonsense and tell dumb jokes and stories about when we used to be and all that stuff. And it always baffles us when they come up to us at the expos and they're like, "I listened to your show. I'm Last 5 Minute Crew." We've got a hashtag Last 5 Minute Crew. They stick around right to the end, and they know all the details, and they ask how my dog's doing, and they ask how Emily's doing, and they talk to Dusty about his latest rescue dog and all that stuff. And it just blows our mind that chicks listen to our show. And you must have, with bro chat and all the nonsense that goes on at your place, man, you must have the same feeling when these chicks come up and say, "Man, I love your show. You're the number one show on my list. You're my Spotify number one," all that stuff. How does that feel?
Shocked.
You ever think you'd have chicks listening to your show?
Dude, it's not just chicks. It's like I think I had like a grandmother once. I'm not joking. It's like a 50-year-old woman at an appearance or something, like 50 or 60, I can't remember. And she was like, "I love your show." I'm like, "What the fuck?
Why?"
I looked at her, I'm like, "What are you doing listening to my show?" She's like, "Well, my son watches it, and I started watching it with him, and I love it. I think it's great." And I'm like, this is fucking mind-blowing. I'm like, we talk about the dumbest, like, just meathead /
locker room. you know?
And this old, nice grandmother is like, I love your show. It's absolutely baffling to me. I had at the New York Pro, I went backstage, and one of the competitors, this tiny little black girl, she was like 100 fucking pounds. She's like, oh my God, I love your show. It's the greatest. I'm like, what show? She's like, Bro Chat. I'm like, oh my God.
Suddenly slightly embarrassed.
I go, like, first of all, that stuff's not real. I just say that shit for a laugh. She's like, no, it's hilarious. Because I always feel horrible and like embarrassed when people like.
I'm always thinking, oh man, I made that one joke. Yeah.
Like, I'm like, this girl knows how I go to the bathroom. I'm like, what the fuck? So
she knows how many wet wipes I use versus toilet paper.
Right. It's really fucking embarrassing. Oh, but it's shocking. It's shocking at the same time. My favorite ones, I got to tell you, my favorite ones are when I have couples come up to me and they're like, me and my boyfriend watch your show together. I don't let him watch it unless I'm there, or vice versa. It'll be like, the guy will come up to me and be like, my girlfriend won't let me watch the show unless we're watching it together. And I'm like, those are my favorite, because for some reason it makes it like my show's legitimate. Like this couple is sitting down.
It's like a television show. You don't watch Landman until your wife
in trouble if you watch ahead, right?
Yeah. It's really cool to fucking hear that shit, right? And then there's the guys who, and these ones blow my mind the most. There's the guys who like use us to get through tough times. Yeah. These guys, I'm sure you guys get these too. I just had a guy tag me in a photo yesterday, and he was like, I wouldn't have got through my divorce if it wasn't for Bro Chat. I had another guy cry, and he came up to me. He met me at an appearance. He cried and told me that when his grandfather passed, he wouldn't have got through if it wasn't for our podcast. And I'm like, these guys just I'm like, man, we're just shooting the shit. And he's like,
yeah.
They're like, yeah, but they're like, we need it. Right. So I'm like, it kind of blows my mind a little bit. I don't know. Look, like, honestly, it's crazy. I never, ever thought the podcast would be anything more than people admiring. Like, I just posted one today with Akeem. Akeem Williams floored me. I had no idea. You know, Akeem's very quiet, doesn't really post a lot on social media. Yeah. He's very, obviously, like one of the fucking strongest bodybuilders ever. I'm picturing like just a fucking meathead like the rest of us. And this is why I love the podcast. I get him on, I'm talking to him. The guy was like a graduate school counselor of some sort, and also had something to do with computer science. I'm like, this guy's a fucking genius. I'm like, not only is he way stronger than me, way more muscular, way better looking, but he's also 10 times smarter. I'm like, so I just like, it's really cool to be able to learn about these guys. It's really cool to be able to teach and like share their stories with the people watching, so that they get to learn. They get to learn who Akeem is, or whoever it is. Because those are my favorite comments. Are like, I never even knew this guy before. I'm like, I love him. He's great. And I'm like, oh, that makes me feel good. I'm like, I introduced so-and-so to all these people. Yeah. But I never suspected it would be like it is, where like there's people watching on their TVs and shit. Like, I don't know. It's cool. It's amazing. It's all very flattering.
Yeah. I look back to that kind of that era that we both caught. You caught the tail end of it. Coming into bodybuilding. When did you start bodybuilding? Like 2003 or something? 2000. So you would have started bodybuilding right at the kind of that, you know, the message board era, and how that transitioned into YouTube coming along. And there was that era where YouTube existed and the message boards existed. Like they were overlapping a bit, right? I feel stupid for not realizing, like, imagine if we knew what was coming. Like, just think of this past election cycle, how the mainstream media, like NBC News and CNN, got destroyed by podcasts. just completely destroyed. Like, they have to rethink their entire business model. They're panicking right now. They're having boardroom meetings about like being short hundreds of millions of dollars in budget to combat these podcasts. Yeah. I can't believe where it's come, and it's every industry. Like, you know, I've got other interests too. So I'm watching podcasts, guys that review movies, and I'm watching podcasts, but I'm sure we all have these other interests podcasts are crushing everything. Like, it's mind-boggling, and none of us saw it coming. Like, we weren't sitting around going, "Just wait till our podcasts have taken over everything."
Well, the guy who did see it coming is fucking Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
That's where at the beginning of this, you said, "Where would we be? We'd be Joe Rogan."
Yeah,
damn it!
I know. I love that clip. One of my favorite pop culture clips is that clip of Rogan on Tom Green's basement broadcast, where he was just broadcasting over the old dial-up from his parents' house in Toronto, and they're sitting in the basement, and Joe's like, "So we're like on the internet right now?" You know,
you can see Rogan's curiosity. He's like,
you can see the gears, and he's like, he's like, "So I can just drink this beer, and there's no like." Like, there's no board, there's no like FCC that's gonna not want this show to go. Like, I can we could smoke. And Tom Green's like, "You can do whatever you want," and he's like, "Oh shit!" Like,
he owes Tom some money.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, he does.
Oh, that's amazing.
When you do you like have a podcast budget? Like, do you think about that? Or do you just like do your show?
No, but it's actually interesting you brought that up, and I'm glad you did, because I want to kind of plug something I'm working on. I don't have a podcast budget. I do everything by myself. I don't pay anybody to do anything. Nobody produces my stuff. Nobody edits my stuff. I do everything myself. Hence why it looks a little bit shitty. But
working.
I think it's great. Still pumping it out in 720p. It's okay.
I assumed you had somebody doing it, man. I figured like you just turned it over. So shout out to you. I know what you go through then.
If I paid somebody to put it up in 720p, I'd be really pissed off.
Well, it looks great on a small screen.
Yeah. When you blow it up, it's just all pixels. It's just fucking okay. Anyway, so about 3 months ago, maybe, I started investing in some software for the Real Bodybuilding Podcast that's going to have a whole bunch of different facets of bodybuilding plugged into it. So it's going to be a member site. Right now, we do predictions on the podcast, and we have a predictions page. It's called realbodybuildingpodcast.com. You can't enter it yet. Right now, it's just for the hosts. We go in, we do our predictions. It generates you press generate results. It generates the results of who won out of all the guys that predicted, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be open to the public. So everybody in the world will be able to compete with us. You can put your name in, log in, you can make your predictions for the Olympia or the Arnold or the New York or whatever, and you're competing with me and Ian and Paul and everybody else. So there's that. The second aspect to the member site is a Rate Your Physique. So I don't know if you guys remember, but we used to do Rate Your Physiques on the podcast, where somebody would submit their photo, submit their stat, and we would go on and say, your fucking abs suck, you're fat, you suck, you're horrible, you're ugly, you're a 4 out of 10. And we would send it back. Well, that was extremely popular, and a slew of fucking people asking about it. So there's a Rate Your Physique section where you can go in. And the nice thing about the Rate Your Physique section on the software is it keeps track every month. So you get one submission a month and you get one rating. And the next month you put in whatever your progress is like.
Resubmit.
Yeah, you resubmit, and then you say, maybe I'll go from a 6.7 to a 6.8. So
I did a bunch of extra calf raises.
Yeah. So there's a Rate Your Physique, a running diary of Rate Your Physique. There's also a Rate Your Form. So if you think your squats are shit and you want some help, you put your video up and we rate your form. It's like a 10 out of 10. It's a 3, whatever it is. And then we give you pointers on how to fix your form. So there's a Rate Your Form section. The last piece, which is the best piece, the piece I'm most excited about, is we're doing a bodybuilding fantasy league. So basically, I don't know if you guys know anything about fantasy football or any of that.
American.
These are Americans here.
South.
So we're doing fantasy bodybuilding. So basically, what you're going to do is you start. For those people who don't know what it is, you're going to start at the beginning of the season with 10,000 points, and you're going to select
get to
your
pick
body.
one wellness girl and one bikini girl, and you get to build your fantasy.
No, it's not that. No, it's not porno.
You should do that too.
Yeah, that'll be a side business. Yeah, that'll be a side business. No, but you get to pick with your 10,000 points. You get to pick your bodybuilders for the year.
Right.
So like Samson's going to be worth like 4,000 points. Right.
Right.
So you got to be a little
strategic.
Yeah, you got to be a little bit strategic because maybe you're going to pick somebody like, Nick Walker didn't do the Olympia for 2 years in a row, so you might be able to get him really cheap right now, right?
Right.
Or like that Johan Podales guy, whatever his fucking name is from Spain. I don't know how to say his name. That guy hasn't really competed this year yet, but he's made a ton of progress. So you might be able to get him really cheap, but he might win a bunch of shows. So there's like a little bit of strategy to be played now, and then there's prizes at the end of the year. So we'll probably do like a $5,000 prize for the winner, or like maybe a trip to go train with somebody or something like that. So we're gonna have the fantasy league added to the member site. So anyway, it's gonna be like an all-encompassing like bodybuilding experience to go with the podcast. So
that's cool.
I didn't even think of that. Sorry, I didn't. For those people watching, I didn't come on here to promote that. I totally just remembered when you guys brought it up. Like,
I'm glad
awesome.
that Ron sprung it, or we wouldn't have known about it.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great idea.
Because I plan on winning that shit.
I could see you're going to also get some guys that you know those guys that pay girls to insult them. This guy submits every month.
Yeah.
Every month.
It's getting worse.
Those guys. Funny, Ron. Those guys literally ask for it. They're like, rate my physique, but they're like, be as rude as you can be. I'm like, okay.
They probably have a bet with their friends over who's going to get the worst review. I submitted. Did you submit? Yeah, I'm going to beat you. Yeah,
that's great.
I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be cool. We'll do little things like, I think for the Rate Your Physique submissions, we're doing like 12 a year. But I think we are plugging in something where, like, if you win a prediction, like let's say you predict the Arnolds and you win,
right?
It gives you another Rate Your Physique or it gives you maybe another 1,000 points in your fantasy league or something like that. So it's kind of all tied together.
That's
okay,
awesome. So, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I had one more question. How about you guys? How are you guys doing?
I'm good. I'm just enjoying kind of as a fan here. I'm just hanging out personally.
I just love that Fouad had no plan at all, and we're just winging it just like we do.
Yeah, we're at that stage where I now feel like we're hogging time, and I'm like, move this along.
I like to go until they don't want to come back.
Yeah. I got one more.
Yeah.
What's the dumbest prep purchase you ever made?
Oh, that's a hard one for him.
And then what's the most like short notice purchase you've made lately where you're like, oh, I can't believe I bought that last night? Is there anything that comes to mind?
It was last night.
During a prep, I bought a truck. I had money saved.
Yeah.
So I had like, I don't even know if I can tell this story.
Tell the story.
I had $100,000 in a bag, and I figured I better spend it.
So I didn't say anything. It was something like that. Anyway, I didn't say anything.
You get the idea.
I woke up. I was in the middle of prep. I don't know. I think it was like 3 or 4.
I had all this money.
No, I woke up one day and I'm like, you know what? I'm spending too much money. I'm like, I spend too much money on my cars. I'm like, this is just, you know what? I'm gonna learn to be more responsible. So I took the bag and I went down to the dealership and I said, I want to buy that Dodge Ram. They had Dodge Rams on for like super fucking cheap. I think it was when the new body style came out, they were trying to dump all the old body style ones. So I'm like, I'm going to take that Dodge Ram 1500. It's super good on gas. It's really cheap. It doesn't have any options on it. I don't care. I just, you know what? I'm going to learn to be very frugal with my money. Like it was going to happen like overnight.
Yeah.
So
they're basically paying you to take it. you know?
Yeah. I go there, I give him the bag, I walk out of there with a truck. The truck lasted 2 fucking weeks. I'm like, this truck fucking sucks. It's got no luxuries. It doesn't have any fucking heated or cooled seats. It doesn't have a fucking down. Doesn't have a moonroof. Doesn't have power windows. I'm like, fuck this fucking truck. I dumped it, but I spent $50,000 fucking dollars on it to save money, and then end up costing me money because I had to get rid of it and then get something else. So, prep brain is horrible, dude.
I just want to point out to all the listeners that your logic is skewed when your answer to spending too much money is to spend $50,000.
Right.
I know how to stop spending money. I'll spend $50,000.
But Dusty, I was spending it to save money. I was like,
yeah, it's like putting out an oil. I think when there's an oil well fire and they put it out by blowing up dynamite.
Yes. Oh my god. Yeah. No, but recently I can't say. I spend a lot of money on my motorcycle stuff now. Like I have fucking 9. I have 9 helmets. I don't know why. I can only wear one at a time. It's like people who buy shoes. I have a fucking helmet fetish. Every time I see a cool helmet, I'm like, I want to buy a helmet. But I think now that I'm not dieting anymore for shows and stuff, I don't think I'm much better with my money than I used to be. Other than some small frivolous stuff I buy for my motorcycles here and there, I'm actually like pretty good. It's the prep, the drugs, the being the drugs and being hungry. It's all just a bad recipe.
You can't go out to eat. Buy a vehicle.
Yeah. Somehow not being able to eat, like shopping made that feel better.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I don't know what the connection is there.
I think everyone has to take that L though, Fouad. Because I did that during a prep. I bought a 750 in 2010 BMW. Buy this car. It was, for everyone knows, certified used, so I didn't get completely murdered.
Yeah.
Drive it off the lot. I owned the car for 6 weeks. They had it for 4 for the problems it had. It was the biggest pile of shit I've ever owned. And you know it's bad when I stormed into the dealership. I was done. I'm like, I'm going in there. I was ready for the fight. I go in and I'm like, you're taking this car back. The guy goes, okay. And I'm like, all right. And he goes, well, what do you want? I'm like, that X5. He goes, okay. This isn't much of a story. Okay. The guy knew. He's like, we've had your car for a month and can't figure out what's wrong with it. So that was my second to last BMW, the X5 being the last. So yes, everyone has to take that big L during a prep where you're like, really? And there's nothing more embarrassing. See, when I used to drive a 1986 Jeep Cherokee, if it broke down, of course it broke down. It was a 1986 Jeep Cherokee. When you break down in a 750 BMW that's got paper plates on it and you're stuck on the side of the road, you feel like the biggest asshole on the planet.
Yeah. Yeah, because people are driving by going, look at that fucking asshole. If you have a shit box, they actually might stop and help you.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Oh, good stuff. That's classic. Yeah. Oh, this was awesome.
Well, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate your time. You really hung out with us for a bit here.
Thank you for having me.
Glad to see you doing well, man. Glad to see you, safety bar squatting the other day, giving her shit, tearing it up in your own gym. Yeah. I'm also glad to see that, you don't have a public gym, but you have your own gym, which means you're still, so this is how I describe myself. I'm still completely insulated from regular people. Right? I still, even though I'm not competing anymore, I still am in a bubble where I think it's completely normal to look a certain way. I think all girls look a certain way. That's just an average girl, right? Because I'm not at a normal gym, right? And you're not training at a commercial fitness gym around normal people. You're not kind of de-bodybuilded at all. You're just got Paul and you and the music's cranked and you're fucking giving her. And I feel we've both been retired for a long time, but we're still not around normal people much at all.
No, still, it might as well be 10 years ago. I'm just smaller.
Yeah.
Right? And I can't, I can't lift as much. But other than that, it's the same shit I've been doing for 20 years, and I wouldn't have it any other way. No. I have that gym, so I don't have to change. I want to be a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
I want to squat for as long as I can. I don't care if it's fucking 2 plates. I don't care,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love getting after it.
I know you already know this
at the end that, based on what you said, John's got to be real happy with how you're managing now 5 things. And from the outside looking in, you seem to be managing them pretty damn well too. So that's got to feel good for you to take a second and realize as you're balancing so much and doing it so well that, a lot of the lessons he wasn't purposely teaching you took on.
Thank you, Dusty. That means a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. That's all we can do.
It's funny, Dusty, when you think of things that you're doing, you don't ever see those things yourself. So sometimes it's nice for somebody else to point it out because you're like, oh yeah. So I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's nice.
Yeah, man. It's good to see, I'm partial to the guys that saw multiple eras of bodybuilding. I feel like they really have something to contribute and something to say comparatively and all that stuff. So I like that, you've got such a voice with all these other guys on your show. And I like that's represented. I still remember those blue locker pictures from the gym in Windsor, and I still remember looking at photos and being like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to compete against this guy. Damn, he's good. Like he's gonna be, he might be a super this year.
I forgot we competed against each other. That's so crazy.
I know, it's funny, eh?
That's how long ago. And we competed against each other in Vancouver too.
Yeah, just so crazy. Then you bought pancakes for everyone.
Yeah.
And I remember a lot of buying Ron food, by the way.
One of the guys, you know what's funny? I realized the other day, one of the guys I fucking hate was at that dinner. He owes me dinner.
Oh, there you go.
Now you don't want it.
That's funny. I still remember, I said to John, because I just kind of wound up being with Meadows at the end of that show. And I go, oh, you want to get out of here? And he goes, yeah. I just, my wife wants to go talk to the judges. Because Meadows had placed last in the 202.
Yeah.
It was 202 back then? 202, I think.
Yeah.
And John had technically placed.
No, it was 212, I think.
212? 212? Okay. I can't remember what year. Yeah.
Anyway,
it was 15.
Yeah.
But anyways, he had placed last in that division. And he looked incredible, of course, he's Meadows. And his wife and him and I went up to the judges, and I was just kind of hanging back. And his wife started talking to the judges. And then I heard the judge go, well, conditioning is very important. And, if you get his conditioning. And I just remember his wife just turned around and looked at me, and she gave me this look like, I can't fucking believe we do this.
Yeah.
You know? And John was like, oh, that was helpful. Like,
that's the one thing John does have over everybody.
It was like, what the fuck? Can
I tell you a funny story? The first time I saw John, just to touch on this for 1 second. The first time I saw John was in 2004. I went to the North Americans in Cleveland, and I walked in there. I sat down. I think I wasn't far from the front row, and I remember John walking out, and I go, "Who the fuck is that fridge?" He just looked. And the crazy part is, if you only know John from like the 2015 shows, I don't think you would realize how big he was.
Right, because he was like a heavyweight.
Dude, I didn't know John in 2004. I had no idea who the fucking guy was. He walked out, and I'm like, this guy's fucking enormous. He made all the other guys look small. The problem was he didn't have great shape. Like he looked like a box, but he was massive, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? It was just it blew my mind. And then I don't know, fast forward 8 years or 9 years, I start seeing the cattle prod videos.
I remember those. That's amazing.
Cattle prodding fucking John fucking squat, and I'm like, these guys are fucking crazy. I got to get to and then everybody started doing John's programs, and I was like, you know what? I think I got to work with this fucking guy, and that's how it came about. But I remember seeing him for the first time, 10 years earlier at the North Americans and could not believe the size of this fucking human. It was, and it was crazy because weight wise, he was a heavyweight, so he couldn't have been over 220.
Right.
So he wouldn't have been much bigger weight wise than he was in 2015. But this is where we're going back to weight. It didn't matter. He looked way bigger earlier on in his career.
Right.
So anyway, sorry, I took a side.
No,
I love it.
Yeah. The cattle prod videos and the banded deadlifts. Do you remember the banded deadlift video? AMRAPs he was doing, and
John brought all of that shit. Anybody who uses band days to thank fucking John. John brought all of that. He was the
powerlifting crossover.
Yeah.
Because he was training with all those guys and he brought all that shit over. And we actually listed John's biggest contributions on the show one time, things that are everyone's still doing. And it's a contribution when they're doing it and they don't realize it came from Mountain Dog. That's when you really know it's foundational. And the one thing is everyone's doing leg curls to start their leg workout now.
Yeah.
That was a John thing.
Like we used to go in and warm up on the squats and the extensions, but now everyone's doing a few sets of leg curls first, even if it's not hamstring day.
Yep.
And then, the Bulgarians and the bands.
Oh, the Bulgarians.
Yeah. And there's so many things. Yeah.
But I'll tell you this, John would be furious if he was still around at the way bands are being used now, because
did you watch the video?
The primary way I see bands being used is on a reverse hack squat.
Yeah.
So that guys can put 10 fucking plates aside on the reverse hack squat.
Big thick band.
The big thick band.
They're like
the 200-pound band.
There was never ever a time when me and John would do reverse anything with the bands unless it was based solely on recovery or injury. So like with John, he would train 6 days a week, and 2 of them would be active I think he called them like active rest days. So if you did go in and train legs on that day, he'd be like, set up a reverse band because we're just trying to move blood around. We're trying to we're not trying to like tax the muscle. So use a reverse band. Or if you have a knee problem, he'd be like, hey, put a reverse band on that to save your knees a little bit at the bottom of the movement.
Yep.
Now you'd be hard pressed to find a guy doing the band the proper way.
Yeah.
Right.
Harder.
So yeah, John would be a little upset that his stuff is being murdered, but
it's the way it works.
Yeah.
No, I'm glad that there's things that are in there. The pee is in the pool. You can't take the Meadows out of the bodybuilding now. It's just in there, and that's a good thing.
I do wish more people knew where it came from, though, because I don't think a lot of the young guys now understand how much of a contribution he had to bodybuilding.
Oh yeah,
because John also wasn't even though he had his YouTube channel, he wasn't a very outspoken coach like a Haney or a Chad or a Cito. So he always kind of flew under the radar. So I don't think anybody really understands how great a coach he was or how intelligent he was when it came to strength and conditioning.
Oh yeah, off the charts.
The reason I listened to John's stuff was, I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back now, like this is before I got to know him, I started paying attention to him, and I just thought, oh, this guy sounds like he cares about gains.
Yeah.
He's not, hey, buy my book, or hey, this or that. It was like, he just sounds like he cares and he wants people to get more out of this thing they're doing, and that was it really came across. And I know he didn't strategically do that. That was just him. But that was why a lot of people listened.
You know what got me the most about John? We'd be driving in his fucking car to the gym and I'd be just picking his brain, right? And there would be times where he would just say to me, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck do you mean you don't know? You're supposed to be my coach. He's like, I don't know. He's like, it just works. He's like, I can't tell you that. He's like, I've done this with 1,000 people. I can't tell you why it works, but it works. Or sometimes he would just say, I don't know, period.
Yeah.
And to me, and that sounds like, for people watching, it sounds crazy that would be a bonus. Because why would you want a coach that says, I don't know? To me, if you want a coach that says, I don't know, because that's fucking real.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because there's very few people out there that know everything.
Sure.
Yeah.
So to hear somebody with his knowledge base that's written books go, I don't know, makes me have even more confidence in him now that he's not bullshitting me.
Yeah. The things he does tell you he knows, he absolutely knows.
Right. Well, it's just that I know this guy's not going to lie to me. This guy just literally just told me he doesn't know something. That means he's honest. That to me is bigger than anything.
What's like a heavy complimenter versus a guy who doesn't compliment that often. When you get a compliment from someone who doesn't, you're like, oh,
yeah, okay.
My mom thought I was great at everything, Fouad. Those compliments didn't really mean a lot to me.
No, I know that. Yeah.
Well, thanks, buddy. We appreciate it.
Yep.
Remember, everybody out there, this is Fouad Abiad. He used to compete, and now he has a little podcast. Make sure you check it out. Make sure you check out Bro Chat and the Real Bodybuilding podcast and all the awesome stuff he's doing. And don't forget Hosstile and the Detroit Pro. Yep. Follow him up, which I'm sure you're already doing. I think we might have, obviously unintentionally, we might have one of the most overlapping audiences of all the bodybuilding podcasts. It's really funny. I don't see anyone.
I think it's because our content and sense of humors overlap.
Similar, and our generation and era and world. So it's funny. Just all the Spotify stuff you see, people year end. It was like your pod. Anyone that was watching ours was watching yours. It was like
I saw that.
And then it was always a real shit mix to see what else they were watching. None of those were consistent. There'd be one Cutler cast. One would be like Plates and Dates. One would be like it was funny.
And Rogan. Rogan was always in there too.
Yeah, Rogan was. But thanks for coming on. Remember, everybody, like, share, subscribe, comment, and
ring the bell.
Yes, ring the bell. Keep the algorithm cranking in our favor. And remember, IamMutant.com. Go to IamMutant.com. Dusty and Big Ron are your codes. Get your all in, get your ISO surge, and everyone should get on the gear. That's how we like to see all 2025. You're on the gear all year long. Everyone's got to get on the gear.
EAA.
It's our EAA.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He goes, really?
No wonder people watch this podcast. Somebody get on steroids.
All year.
Get on the gear. All 2025. Use your codes.
Yeah, we tell kids to do it. Grandmas, everybody.
Grandmas, kids, everyone. They love it.
Thanks for everybody.
And of course, a special thanks to the Last 5 Minute crew and all the female listeners out there that were watching this episode. Make sure you come up to us and Fouad at the next event and give him a hard time. Make sure he knows that you're watching and paying attention. Okay. Thanks, man. Thanks for coming on. It's your third appearance, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yes, it is.
A guy that hates us and we hate him. That's pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good. My favorite frenemy.
Yes. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you.
Cheers, Fouad.